that's part of what keeps us religion. The other thing is that in an era where you have very little knowledge about medicine in the 1800s, look at how far we've come as far as science and medicine. When you have very little knowledge, you try and rely on any kind of answer, and religion tried to give people answers as to why things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And as we get more, so those are two, I think, parts of why we were tied to religion, that people went to it. It gave you answers where you didn't have any until now, where we have more answers, and the government support for it. You couldn't work on a Sunday, so you went to church. I mean, you weren't compelled to go to church, except in the 1700s or 1600s, when you could be put to death for violating the Ten Commandments.
Well, yeah, I think that's true, but I think it's that what you're bringing up is kind of seems to be later on in the argument.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
I mean, what you're getting to is kind of like
it's clear that the state plays
as the argument develops
a huge role in how religion works.
No, but I think from Durkheim's standpoint, basically he's dealing with the specific sociological and physical aspects of why people have religion.
Yeah. And you don't think it answers questions when we don't have answers to questions?
Oh, sure, it does that.
Sure, it does that.
too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, but he didn't say that.
It's just,
no. He says when he's talking about the totemistic societies, what he says is not only does it does this collective effervescence thing, which obviously they experience it, so on that level they recognize it, but they don't theoretically understand it in the way that Durkheim does. What they see it as is, okay, we're all together here. Literally, the witchetty grub spirit has invaded us.
Yes.
And has made itself manifest in us, and it is manifesting itself in us as a community, as a group, and that's where this power and energy comes from.
I've been taken over by the Holy Spirit.
That's right. They get that power and that energy. Durkheim says, of course we know as materialists that that's false. That can't be correct. We know that's not what's doing it. But there's clearly something going on there. There's something that's going on with that sociological fact.
How did he address this issue? That religions oppressed certain parts of the society, like the mentally ill and women in particular. Why is it that women would keep clinging to this institution? How did he explain why women who were oppressed by it, or people, why is it that...
But in the totemistic tribes, they weren't even oppressed by it. They were simply excluded from all the rituals. They simply couldn't play a part in any of the rituals.
In the Jewish, Orthodox Jewish cultures, and so many religions, the women are treated like dirt. They're hurt. You can't get divorced. I mean, they are raped. They're everything. They have no rights. They have no property, nothing. How did he explain why people who were... even blacks. How do you explain blacks going to the Bible when the Bible was used to justify slavery? How do you explain that?
Effervescence, and also I think the way that effervescence is linked to, as you were noting, the existence of certain very powerful ideas that provide for you a way to make sense of the universe, even if it's an empirically false way to make sense of the universe. It nonetheless gives you an answer. Where did we come from? We came from the witchetty grub.
Or it says,
where are we going? We're going that way because the witchetty grub says going that way.
or you'll get what's due you in a life after death.
Right. Yeah.
That's right.
They'll be having
that's the classic example. Yeah, for the poor and the suffering.
Yeah.
Why do you not revolt? Why do you not rise up and kill the rich people and take their stuff? Because if you've been properly indoctrinated in those religious ideas, you've been taught that you'll get your reward. The
render unto Caesar.
You'll get your reward in the afterlife.
Isn't that great for the government? Get them to believe that they shouldn't revolt to what we're doing now. The powerful. Keep pushing this religion because they won't bother us if they think they're going to get their what's due them after death.
That's the classical. That's the Marxian.
But I think Durkheim, even if he hadn't specifically mentioned, government propping up of religion, I think just by virtue of his description and his argument that you kind of logically conclude that why it does answer why the government supports religion. In
the elementary forms, I mean, it's basically he's doing what he sees as an anthropological stuff.
Yeah.
That is, he doesn't say anything that's not about those primitive societies, other than in the conclusion he makes some moderate points about here's what we can expect to happen. Right. Here's what we can see sort of as tendencies. But it's later in his life, and it's especially in his career, I think, as a political activist and as someone who was an outspoken secularist and who was an outspoken critic of the folks who said the French state has to be morally buttressed by the Catholic Church. Durkheim's position on that was absolutely clear. No way. There have to be other. In fact, one of the things that he did, which was controversial in its own right, was to present sociology as a discipline, as a kind of substitute religion in some ways.
A way to explain the world.
A way to explain the world, right.
Yeah, based on science. We're talking about the individualist. Of course, who is the ultimate individualist? That's the atheist. The atheist is way on this spectrum, so much so that the atheist doesn't want to belong to any religion, doesn't want to belong to a church, doesn't even want to join an atheist organization. They don't want to join. Okay, it's like joining a church. They are self-reliant, self-sufficient. They don't need any of that stuff.
But we do collective effervescence too. I mean, we may not do them
Sure.
specifically in
That's
that realm, but we do collective effervescence and solidarity in a big way.
Atheists,
We'll go to the
because
stone
that's
show,
atheism. That's what, it's socialization that's human. And atheists want to be part of atheist groups, local groups. They want to meet and socialize. They want to socialize. They might not join your group,
Right,
okay?
right.
Well, and I'll show up, but I'll party with you at your parties, and that's the atheist. That's exactly right.
But in terms of, like, for instance, at our annual convention every year, I mean, the human psychological reason why people show up is for the same reason that people show up anywhere. It's about people like to, mingle with people of like mind. That have
they're seeking effervescence in Durkheim.
I like that word,
They want
effervescence.
effervescess. Yeah.
So given that we have all this knowledge and we know what Durkheim told us, and that you're writing your second book on this subject, how is this relevant? What should the atheists today, the seculars, what can we do with this knowledge? How is it useful?
Well, that's a good question. I think what this perspective, what this theoretical framework gives us is a way, first of all, to understand some of the things I think that are happening in American religion now. Again, it helps us to understand a little bit more as to what we can expect to happen. I think, again, as individualization increases and continues, I think we'll continue to see this falling away from certainly from the traditional, in the United States, the mainline Protestant churches, for example, are bleeding members and have been for a long time now.
Well, the Catholic Church.
The Catholics would be as well if it weren't for immigration. I mean, the fact that there's a significant
But they're
amount of
bleeding
Latin
clergy. They're bleeding
clergy. That's exactly
seriously.
Right.
I mean, I think that one of the reasons why a lot of these pedophile priests have been moved around as opposed to dumped is because they
don't have other people.
They don't have other people to take their
bodies
place.
to put in their places.
Unless they change the rules about married priests.
Right.
And they're going to have to, again, modernize.
They're going to have
We'll
to.
end up doing that,
We can
won't
expect. It's likely that we can see that happening. Yeah. And so, what this theory gives us is a way to understand, first of all, what's happening with respect to religious belief, and also what we can expect to happen in some of these other, or at least according to me, what we can expect to happen in some of these other cultural realms, as the religious realm loses that practice and that ritual of collective effervescence. We see it becoming more important and more relevant and more powerful in other spheres. So some of the things that I talk about in some of the chapters that are already written for the Tragic Playbook are how sport, for some folks, and even sport as both a participant or as an observer phenomenon, but also as a participant phenomenon. I mean, there are people who are, even though they're not professional athletes, their lives are made up. The real core of meaning of their life comes from going to the gym every day and working out and feeling, good about the aesthetics of their body and so forth, and really having an experience in the gym, on the basketball floor on the weekends, whatever. That's very much like what Durkheim talks about when he talks about the Wichita Grub clan together celebrating their. An example that I use often with my class is to talk about when I was a grad student. The last couple years that I was a grad student at UCSD, first I should preface this by saying, huge basketball fan, absolutely massive basketball fan. I like college basketball quite a lot. A big NBA fan. I know it's usually the inverse, that people say I like college basketball better because better competition. It's not overpriced, overpaid professionals who are sitting on their butts all day long and not doing it and don't really care. But I like them both. When I was a grad